Welcome back to the Stacked Podcast, where the typical males come together in groups called podcasts, typically of 2 or 3 individuals, and come together to talk about things they're interested in, whether that be sports, gaming, or movies. For the Stacked Podcast, here we have the Ethicus, Williamicus, the Christophus, Leicus, and the Brandicus, Winchestercus come together to talk about movies and triple features. We will now take an insight into what they do for a podcast. Join me.
It was great. Oh, it was good. Onion ring. I got an onion ring.
Onion ring. Oh, it's an onion ring.
That's right, everyone. You heard David Atbro. Today, we are doing another episode of Stacked. We're back. We're at it. And for episode 49, the podcast, we're going documentary. We're getting a little documentary up in y'all. We're gonna fill your brains with some recommendations, some picks about some of the greatest documentaries out there. Now, documentaries. That could be a lot of things, you know? A documentary, much to people's surprise, it's not a style. I think that's one of the greatest takeaways from film school is like never say documentary style when you're talking about documentary film. You know, there's different modes of documentaries. There's different genres within the documentary. It's really just it's a medium of telling a story, you know, of telling nonfiction narrative. And yeah, I'm back. Ethan, Chris, Brandon's here. Boys, how you doing? How you doing, everybody?
Doing great. I'm doing terrific, actually. Yeah, I think I'm living the life right now at a really nice house.
It's a pretty good house, I must say. For those of you unaware, Brandon has moved into my house, so he's currently
my house.
my house.
Control now.
Because this house has thin walls, I've exiled Brandon to the clear other end of this house. So he's sitting in the sunroom right now to record while I got my own setup in my room. But we're chilling, and Chris, he's still at his other place from last time, but he's moved out of the K, you know. But Chris, you doing good? You chilling?
Yeah, chilling. It's definitely like it's really like ever since we did our episode on college movies, we talked a little bit about like that post-college feeling that we're all kind of going through right now, that kind of graduate kicking and screaming kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely feel like we're all kind of there, you know, just kind of like that aimless, but like not that that's a bad thing. It's just kind of like we don't really know what to do with ourselves. But that's in the weirdest way, it's like the most normal thing in the world to be feeling that right now.
Right.
So yeah, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and it is what it is, you know. I've started working at the prop house 9 to 5 every day this week, so you know it's kind of like I'm doing like the most adult thing, waking up in the morning, going to work, coming back at 5, and then you know, kicking back and having a beer, maybe watching a movie, going to bed, and rinse and repeat, you know. But yeah, it's gonna be fun, and I think. After these aimless days, I really look forward to recording this podcast with you two, you know? It's a chance for me to kick back and relax and talk some movies, and I think we're going to have a really good one today, because we haven't really talked about any documentaries. We've talked about maybe 2 or 3. Of course, the infamous Blue Planet 2.
The Fall of the Giants?
And the Giants documentary.
Yeah, the giant documentary, Jesus Christ.
The Race of Giants, I forgot about that. Very drunk. Well, because I was drunk when I talked about it, so that's probably why I didn't remember it. Yeah, but now we're gonna splunge fully into documentaries, and I'm excited to see what you guys have here. Is there a certain like order of something, like criteria for your stacks of like what it means to be a quintessential documentary film?
Well,
Chris?
for me, like I was actually talking to Tori about this a couple days ago, and she brought this really interesting idea about how like she's, at least to her, in her words, like she kind of like highlighted this kind of discrepancy within documentaries between like there's like one side of documentary where it's like it's like documentaries about very important subjects in our society, but there's also like certain kinds of documentaries that are very much kind of like more entertaining. It's just more fascination based rather than like there's an urgency to like the subject. So I think for me, I'm hoping that a lot of the stuff that I'm going for encapsulates both. It's like an important subject, but also is told in this very fun, entertaining, and captivating way. And I think that's something like documentaries really like good at, is kind of captivating you because it's knowing that it's real. There's something about that. It's a whole new thing all on its own. Like you said, Ethan, like documentary is in its own way. It's like, yeah, it shares parallels with narrative filmmaking, especially nowadays, where like the media convergence is really starting to bleed things together. But also there's like its own craft of storytelling, and that comes from that. And you also have like things like, as we all know, like video essays are starting to feel steadily more like documentaries, because you're kind of like exploring things, and there's certain parallels, but there are also like certain ways that they're not the same. So anyway, yeah, I just want to do something that's like that has a little bit of everything. So that's how I went about it. How about you, Brandon?
Yeah, Chris, similarly, I feel like documentaries to me can like come from many different styles, many different like ways of being made. Like I know we we talked about many different types of documentary in our film classes, like observational documentary or fly on the wall, essentially, as like these different types of documentary. It's not just like one style. Hence why Ethan's like, you shouldn't just say refer to something as a documentary style, because there are more than one way to make one. You could do like a part fictionalized one, like with close up, which is like sort of a documentary but sort of not, which is really cool. You could do something like a mockumentary, which you could consider a documentary, which is a riff on the documentary genre, like something like This Is Spinal Tap, or any like of those TV shows that are popular nowadays, like with the confessionals and stuff. Or you could do something more observational, like a nature doc. And I love that. I think they reveal a lot more, and a lot of people who are like, oh, documentaries are boring, or I only watch like true crime documentaries. No, that's problematic.
Why is that problematic?
Because it's like because here's the thing: if they think they're boring, then they're not willing to invest themselves into a real life story, or they think that if that's the only interesting story to them, I feel like they should broaden their horizons and choose something a little outside of their comfort zone, like Planet Blue.
Like Planet Blue or Blue Planet 2. And I feel like we're going to give some of those picks today. But before we do that, of course, let's run down the rules of the show. Let me fill you in how it all works. Once a week, we set a topic or theme, go our separate ways to construct our own 3-film stack. Then after a week, we come back here on the podcast and share our own stacks, one film at a time. Then at the end of the show, we will mix and match our 9 films to make the ultimate decision what quintessential 3-film stack we are checking out of this hypothetical video store. Chris, why don't you kick us off with your first documentary pick?
Awesome. I'm actually really excited to share this one because it's actually a doc that both of you have seen. Because I told you guys to go watch it. I actually watched it with Brandon. Ethan, you saw it separately from us, I think. But I'm glad you guys both got to see it. You probably saw this coming. It's a 2019 film by Joe Piscatella. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. It's a documentary titled Joshua, Teenager versus Superpower. It is a doc that's available on Netflix. So do yourself a favor and check it out. Yeah, so Joshua Teenager versus Superpower. It's a bit of a mouthful of a title. But I do think it's a really great doc. It's less of the biographical documentary that the title seems to imply, but it's more of like a chronicling of the key events surrounding Hong Kong from like 2012 to 2016. Now, for those of you who might not know much about what's going on with Hong Kong, this is a great way to kind of just like dive in and like get yourself acquainted with the basics. At least it gives you like enough context to understand the stakes of it all. And one thing I really love about this piece is that it provides a lot of very helpful and very appreciated historical context, but not in a boring way. I feel like with a lot of like, especially when you're diving into things like politics or culture or things like that, there's a lot of things to cover because all that stuff intersects. But I think what this doc does really well is kind of give you everything you need to know to at least understand the basics, and that you can at least understand the fundamentals so that you can go around and do your own research after that, but enough that you can have an educated conversation about it after. And one thing I think this doc does a really good job is it drops you into the chaos of it all, and it informs you of the immense stake of the region, not only in like the hearts of the people living in the city, um, but also in like the grand scheme of what it means in the larger sense of the world, and like how vital Hong Kong is in like the discourse between like China versus the United States. Basically, it's basically like the middle ground between those two, and it's that, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, one thing I do want to say is like this doc doesn't catch you up on everything that's happened from Hong Kong until 2019. It's very much 2012 to a 2016 kind of focus, but it does catch you up until then, gives you everything you need to know up until then. And if you I figured this out, if you pair this doc with a couple of episodes from this web miniseries available on YouTube by the news outlet Vox. It's really great. It gives you everything you need to know and catches you up to present day. Anyway, enough about that. What do you guys think? I've shown you both of this. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is a fantastic documentary just because this is a very important issue that I think people should learn about globally. And I think I myself, I was not as well informed in it as you were when you recommended it to me. And when I watched it, like, I learned so much about how this all started, and it's a complex issue. And I think this documentary is very it's very engaging, and it's very what am I looking for? Accessible. It's very accessible to people who aren't as aware of politics, and especially politics between China and Hong Kong, and it's also just a very inspiring documentary. Like, you hear about these kind of stories in like young adult science fiction novels where you see like groups of kids sort of coming together and organizing, to fight against this power. But this really happens. Like, and this really happened, and it's really happening to this day, Yeah, I love it's a good informative documentary about how to organize, and really showing this, like, even though this issue is still going, I consider this a success story because Joshua and his friends really like created a worldwide movement, and while they're still fighting, it's like it's super inspiring to see how this all started, So Brandon, what do you think?
I think it's a good documentary. I think I have issues with the way it's structured as a piece. Like, I don't think the pacing of it is entirely great. Not every documentary is. I feel like, we watched. I don't think we're going to talk about this film, so I'll mention it. We watched Twinsters in our.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, a film like that is really badly paced documentary wise, and this isn't like. Stories We Tell was also kind of like that too, where it was like the first half is, and I feel like Joshua had the same issue. Like, often I think documentaries they have a great first hour or half hour, but it's really hard for them to like keep it going for the full hour and a half without like repeating over old stuff, old ground. And I think it is an extremely important documentary, a really good one, but I feel like it could have. I wouldn't say take a more neutral stance than it does, but it does seem like it is kind of like I'm more of a fan of a documentary that like is allowed to like to measure both sides. But I know like we always get the side of like of China, because they're the superpower, right? And Hong Kong is not. But I think it would have been more compelling to hear both like the Chinese perspective and the Hong Konger perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it would have been more
definitely.
compelling because then you really would have like all sides on this issue. But I think it does a great job at like showing Joshua's struggle and his fellow students' struggle growing up as preteens and teenagers and kind of really defining the Gen Z millennial sort of struggle going on right now with identity and with what's the word? nationalization. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think yeah. In Hong Kong, and it is a fascinating issue to discover. It is a great entry level one. I would recommend it for high school students especially. I
Yeah.
think it is a very inspiring. You nailed it on the head there, Ethan.
Yeah, one thing, like, I do want to say, like, yeah, Brandon, you are right that, like, this film is definitely like you are kind of positioned as a viewer to root for Joshua, because I mean, yeah, it's an inspiring story, so obviously, and like,
But also,
especially,
like,
like,
check.
yeah,
I can't bad talk because we don't
yeah,
know
I
who's
know,
listening.
yeah,
But like, I would empathize with and support the cause.
yeah,
Let's
no,
just
no,
say that.
yeah, like, it's one of those things where, like, as like, even if you have, if you have allegiance to one side or the other, like, it would be kind of interesting to hear like the other side, because as someone with family that like might have different views than I do on this issue, it's that it is a very complex issue. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a reasons why there is the oppositional like perspective on it. So yeah, definitely. I do see that critique, and it does make a lot of sense that like it'd be nice to have that included. Maybe they could do an expansion on that. I don't know. But yeah, I totally get that. But I'm glad you guys like the doc. So yeah, that's my first pick.
Yeah, great first pick, and we highly recommend everyone check that one out. All right, so my first pick is, sort of it was an underrated pick for a year where a lot of notable documentaries were coming out. The year was 2018, and there were two really big documentaries that had everyone talking, and certainly in terms of the Oscars. And I think both of those
Three.
over three. There might have been three. Oh yeah, was it the rock climbing? Was that one came out in 2018? Yeah, three.
Yeah.
But there was a fourth one
Yeah.
that I think should have won Best Doc at the Oscars, but just nobody saw it enough. It's a Hulu documentary. It's called Minding the Gap. Now Minding the Gap is directed by Bing Liu. He's the director, and he's also one of the main subjects of the film. Now, hear me out. That could be a little weird because it's there might be bias in like covering a subject, like a director covering himself or themselves. But in this documentary, it follows three friends who basically met through skateboarding. And for the first like third, not even third, maybe the first fourth of the documentary, you're left at like, okay, so this is just a story about skateboarder culture and these skateboarders and how they like they found each other and how like what their relationship is like, But then for the next 3/4 of the documentary, you sort of go off that point, and then you follow these three through the rest of their lives as they grow up. It's kind of like Boyhood, where you'll keep coming back to certain points in these boys' life. So you'll follow one kid who's a black kid, and he's struggling to find where he belongs, and like, does he want to stay in his hometown? Does he want to leave? So he's like saving up money. He's working jobs. He has a weird relationship with his family and his parents. Then you have another kid who's a white kid, and he has different issues with like girlfriends, and he becomes a father earlier than he expected, and he has drug problems, and you start to like just dive into these people's lives. And then you have the director's life and him about like struggling to find his voice, and like he's an Asian kid, and he has problems, like I said, like finding his place in this town, and like with his parents, and like finding like what does he value as like success and stuff like that. And it's just like the dude, because he is the subject of the documentary and he's like the filmmaker, he's able to take the camera into such intimate moments in these people's lives. You're entering like their living rooms and stuff like that, and everyone is very informal with the director because they're all friends, like it doesn't feel like they're being interviewed. It just feels like this dude is following them with a camera and stuff like that. But it's edited so well together that it's like it presents a narrative, and it blew me away when I saw it because I knew nothing about it. I heard Minding the Gap. I thought that was going to be about like the British subway system because you know they always say please mind the gap when you walk on the subways if you go to the UK.
On the old tube.
If you go on the old tube, they always say please mind the gap when they close the doors. So that's what I thought it was going to be about. But then it was like, oh, skateboarders. Okay, that's kind of weird, I guess. But then it goes into all this shit, and I'm just like, that is like a great documentary about like. People think of documentaries like as some Ken Burns shit, like the Civil War, you know, it has to be like this great global scale stuff, you know, but documentaries are able to tell these small and intimate stories that you would never experience otherwise, you know? And I just think that's the power of documentary. And I think this film does a great job doing that. Now, I know none of you two have seen it, but have you heard about this movie?
So I actually haven't heard about this film, but Ethan, when you would, like you said just now, like when you were talking about this film, I kept contemplating like, wow, like I just pitched like a big, basically an epic of a of a documentary piece. But like you said, documentary is also simultaneously capable of making you enthralled with the most simple and small of stories.
Right.
And like you said, that is the power of documentary. The fact that you're able to find entertainment and also like fascination with something as simple as another human being. And like as someone who like years ago, I actually made a small documentary about my grandma. So like I feel that kind of like the level of like tender like intimacy that you can achieve with documentary if you really hone into like the small scale story that you're telling.
Right.
And it does sound like you are like this doc like hones into that really well. So yeah, I buy it. What do you think, Brandon?
Heard many good things about this documentary. I just have not seen it. I love the idea of like taking the documentary format and like kind of tracking someone or something for a very long period of time, because now that we have the film medium and now that we've sort of experimented with it since like the 1960s, because that's when documentaries sort of like took off, not saying they didn't start making them like as early as like cinema, but it's evolved as a genre. And now that we have the capability and the time that we've had to develop cinema, people are using cameras to document everyday life. You see this like with social media, you're seeing this everywhere. But to see somebody's like life change before your eyes and it's just like as quick as a cut on screen, I think that is like, it's very introspective and you can play out a lot of things that you would never normally be able to play out in regular cinema. Even Boyhood tried to capture that same thing like you mentioned, and I think it only partially works because there is a sense of artifice to it, as if they wrote what was going on at the time and it doesn't feel like, oh, this really happened sometimes. You know, you may find it relatable, but it's not that. You don't get that same thing. But I think there's a film that I've watched called Hoop Dreams that kind of does the same thing, where it tracks these kids from their like disadvantaged city as they try to get a good education and then get into like a good basketball school, because that's the only way for their life to sort of take off past this like stagnated point. And both sound very similar, so I'd be definitely really interested to check it out.
Yeah, and you definitely should. Okay. All right, Brandon, you want to go into your first film?
Yeah. My first film, it's a very personal documentary to me, so I don't know. I shout the praises of this film from the mountaintops, but it's a sports documentary, and you don't really see many of these, I think, making lists because people are like, well, we watch live sports. Like, what's the point? You know, if you live through something, what's the point of watching it? I was 3 years old when this happened, so I don't remember it for gosh dang shit. But it's the 2001 World Series film, Arizona Diamondbacks versus New York Yankees. And I'm not just choosing this because it's an Arizona sports team prevailing. It is a excellent story. Why? It takes place in 2001, so of course this is like right after 9/11, and the Yankees by this point, if you guys don't know anything about sports or baseball or anything, the Yankees are a New York team. They live like their stadium is a few blocks away, or maybe it's on Staten Island, I'm pretty sure, or in the Bronx, right? and that's like right near the World Trade Center. So like they had a month where they could not play games there. They had to like postpone like the season for a little bit. But the Yankees at this point have had they've repeated as world champions 3 times in a row, which is like a rare feat in any sport to do. So that is something that you can find really compelling about this story. Is this? It's also got this underlying thing about 9/11. It's very political, but at the same time, it's like very patriotic. Now, you might find a patriotic like kind of undertone as being a little problematic, especially when it being the U.S. But it is in this way like an innocent sort of thing. But then you've got a young team, an upstart team going up against a team that was heavily maligned for 3 years for winning a championship, which is my team, so I take personal stake in this. Yeah. But it is a fantastic documentary that not only captures like the ups and downs of this excellent series, but the ups and downs of the year 2001 and how it affected the people around us. Like, sport is an escape from the real world just as much as movies are. And to take a real life event that kind of captured the imagination of millions of Americans while this tragedy happened is so wonderful and greatly captured. I heavily recommend it to anybody. It's one of the best sport documentaries out there and heavily one of the most underrated. And I'm not biased, I promise.
No, yeah, I can.
No, like,
go for it, Chris.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I totally get what you mean. Like, I know, like, it's easy to, when you hear that, like, oh, this guy's just a Diamondbacks fan, just trying to toot his horn about his team, blah, blah. And like, yeah, like, you know, there is obviously going to be a personal connection that you have to this film that obviously Ethan and I won't. But there is something like, so there's something to be said about like how that is a part of documentary, the personability of it. And like, there's also just like, yeah, it's if it's a captivating story, it's a captivating story, like, period, you know? And like, you can turn anything into a documentary. There's something fascinating about just existing, and there's something that you can make of that. And like, in this case, like, yeah, like for me, like, I don't know baseball very well. Like, I don't know, like, all I know is I like the Angels, I like Ohtani, and fuck the Dodgers. Sorry. But
you don't have to apologize for that.
I want to apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, I do get what you mean. Like, there's definitely going to be subjects out there that like everybody has a personal connection to, but like, if you articulate that in a way that like is powerful and captivating, you'll be able to captivate someone with a story even if they don't give a shit about what it's about. I remember watching this documentary like years ago about hockey, like an NHL thing going on, and like, I don't know shit about hockey, but somehow I was captivated by this thing. So yeah. I totally get what you mean. Like, I'm sure there's like maybe a concert film out there for like a band or something that I would really like, but like, you know, it's just like, but like, not everyone's gonna necessarily would like that band, but everybody could get behind a documentary about a great documentary. So I see what you mean. I haven't seen this documentary, but I buy the fact that this could totally be captivating, even if I don't give a shit about baseball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, you know, something about like making something like worthy of a story is like, what's the twist that makes it so we haven't like really heard about this thing anymore, you know, or we haven't heard about it for the first time. I don't know what I'm saying. Having the sort of the subtext of it, like a 9/11 underlying it, like elevates it from being more than just like a story about this one playoffs that happens every single year. You know, you're just like, if you watch this film and you're just like, or if you see this film on the surface level and you're just like, oh, it's just about just a playoffs game, like that happens every year, who cares? But there's more to it, you know, and that's what I'm picking up from you, and that interests me. So yeah, hell, take me out to the ball game. You know what I'm saying?
I will. I'll take you out. I'll take you out to the ball game.
All right. All right, Chris, you want to take us into your second film?
Yeah. So mine, okay, I'll be honest, as my stack goes on, it's going to get longer. Like so my next one is a 3-part miniseries. They're quite short. Mm-hmm. It's basically a 3-hour film. It is a true crime documentary. I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I wanted to give it, because, you know, that is a subgenre that a lot of people really like, and I do too. It's a miniseries directed by Mark Lewis in 2019, named "Don't Fuck with Cats." Now, That title might sound a little bit like what the hell is this about? But trust me, you have no idea how deep this thing goes. But yeah, okay, it's a true crime documentary. It's really twisted, but kind of morbidly fascinating because of it. There's a lot of like just like hauntingness that this film puts on you. The way it articulates its story is incredibly engaging. It's kind of like it feels like investigative journalism in that way. There's something about it that is kind of like, oh, we're just uncovering this mystery piece by piece, putting things together and like connecting the dots on our own. And its ultimate resolution is very haunting. Like there's something about, you know, that feeling when you walk out of a movie and you're just like, you just got the shivers or something. Like it just sticks with you in a weird way. That's how this movie feels to me. And like the doc talks about things like the dark web, narcissism, the media, and like the psychopathy of things. And like it doesn't really dive into a psychoanalytical lens that I would like it to. This will all make sense if you watch the series, but for the interest of that, I won't go into much more than that. But yeah, like this is a really engaging, fun, true crime doc. There is a little bit of shall I say, artistic like reprehensibility I have with this film because it's kind of like it's it's so hard for me to explain. But I'll just say like the end of this film will make you question whether or not you should have watched this at all.
What?
It's a little weird. There's
That's
a lot
weird
of
pitch, Chris.
I swear there's context for that, but I think the intrigue of knowing that, like, oh, like what kind of a true crime doc experience is this going to be, would sell it enough. Yeah, I don't know, murder, death, animal abuse, you got it all. So I don't know, like, media is like the new frontier for a lot of like horror and terror in like the digital age. So, and that's definitely something that like that hits like it. I don't know. It just strikes a chord with me. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I feel like, have I talked to you guys about this doc a couple times before?
Yeah, you were gonna show us this doc for a movie night. I remember you pitched it to us, and we watched the trailer for it. I remember we were all down, but I think just like another movie came to mind. And we're like, oh, we gotta watch that, or we just didn't have enough time. I don't remember what it was, but I remember watching the trailer for it, and it looks insane. Like, there's like crazy cat lays. I remember. Is there like there's cut off fingers involved with it? Remember, right?
There's cut off stuff.
Cut off stuff, or some or other like that. And it takes place in Canada, right? Canada,
Canada and United States
and the United States. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. True crime stories are definitely the most popular form of documentary at this time, and there's a reason for it. You know, like people are just fascinated with how humans love to murder and break ethics, you know, and it's even more fascinating when it happens in real life, you know, and when people document that, you know. Yeah, I remember watching the trailers for it, and I'm certainly down to sit down and watch it one day with you guys. Brandon?
Moral crusaders. That's what people like. People like to be moral crusaders and solve things. I think true crime is fun for a certain audience because you're always waiting on bated breath to see how something unfolds. You get a final conclusion usually, and it's extremely cathartic for somebody to go through an entire series or an entire documentary and kind of get this chunk of a story. You get a mystery and intrigue, but then you ultimately get satisfaction in knowing somebody is locked up for this, or something else sort of happened. Like there's some sort of a conclusion, right? And it's rare that you see an ambiguity in these sort of things, and I think that's why they're popular. I don't mind true crime docs. I think when they're done well, like they're extremely good, and like I there is a unique style for. I actually do have a true crime on mine as well, so like it's a unique style that isn't like usually what documentaries are sort of structured like. So like that kind of gives me like a sense of ooh, yay. And that if Don't Fuck with Cats has that, then I'd be extremely willing to check this out, just because not only is it a series, but it entails so many different things, from people's obsession with true crime, like literally it's kind of meta in that sense from the trailer, to also like this this new layer, which is the internet layer, and the past 10 years of the rapid development online and people trying to solve stuff and being obsessed with this and mass media. And I think that could be really cool. I don't know why we haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's definitely on the list of movies I want to show you guys. So yeah, that's my second pick.
Yeah, awesome second pick. True crime documentary is just one thing I want to say. Is just like there's something also very like communal about them. You know, about like people like being able to have a conversation about it. Like I don't think anyone's gonna talk about this on this episode, but because I don't think you two have seen it. But Tiger King, remember the Tiger King phase of quarantine? That was like
when people making whipped coffee and Tiger King. Oh my god,
Yeah.
my foot.
Yeah, you're about to die. It's fine. No, but it's just so fun to like talk about with people. It's like, what the fuck? These people are fucking insane. I don't know, but all right,
Yeah.
good pick. All right, so for my list, I have a feeling my documentaries get more and more observational. Like they dive more into the mode of observation. This one is a 2019 documentary I saw with Brandon. I don't know if you've seen this, Chris, but we saw this movie in IMAX, baby. It is Apollo 11.
Oh yes.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say One Child Nation for some reason.
What? One child.
Why would they show that in
IMAX, baby.
Why would they show
Yeah.
that in IMAX?
No.
I want to learn about the one child policy. Hell yeah.
No. This movie blew me away. Like I heard about the concept. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the movie Apollo 11, it is basically just footage of the preparation, the launch, and the return of the Apollo 11 rocket in 4K. Like all the footage is completely restored. It's not scored. I don't think so. Brandon, do you remember if it's scored or not? It might be scored a little, but
I think it's like a minimum score.
Minimum score. Yeah. There's no narration. There's no interviews. It's just they cut together this massive event within 2 hours to make it feel like it's in real time, you know? Like you are there in the control deck, watching people work the mission, prepare the rocket. You're in there when the people in Florida, what's the place called where they launch all the rockets? I've been there. Cape Canaveral. Cape Canaveral. Yeah, you're in there you're in there with the people in the stands watching this thing take off, and then you're in there with the astronauts going to and from the moon, and it is insane how just like the dedication to probably going through like thousands of hours of archival footage and just editing this together. It's a feat in editing and a film restoration, you know, because when did Apollo 11 happen? 1968? I'd like to say 1967,
68, 69.
68, 69.
9.
Shut up.
Anyway.
But it's also just like a very inspiring film about just like the human race and what we were able to achieve in sending people to the moon, you know? Because you feel like you're part of the team when you're like getting people there and back to the moon. It's like, it's amazing and it's inspiring. And I think you should like, I kind of want to watch this high. I don't know. I think I feel like that would immerse me even more. You know? Anyways, that's side tangent. But yeah, Apollo 11, amazing documentary. Brandon, we saw this in IMAX together.
Yeah.
What do you think?
This is such a good documentary. Like, I think, you know, when you go into it, I didn't know what I was expecting, sort of thing. Like, I knew there would be archival footage, never before seen footage. I didn't expect it to be so crisp. I think one of the best things about documentary, especially for older documentaries, is you get to see a world that you weren't like privy to in like 4K or like 1080p. Like the advantage of having the restoration technology we have now is we get to see a world in color from that time. We weren't even around for it, and that's crazy. And that's going to be crazy for people in the future when they just sit back and watch documentaries from our just our decade that we grew up in, the 2000s, 2010s, because like that's when HD technology started to take off. But to see that from the 1960s, let alone being a space film that is as captivating as it is, despite having no score, despite having like no like true dialogue in it, it's like it's fantastic. And it's like from start to finish you're like in awe of the fact that we have achieved this as a species. So, and not as a country, just as a species, because it's like it's super impressive, it's really well documented, and it's highly detailed. It doesn't pull its punches.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think about that? Have you seen this one?
No, I haven't. So
Okay.
like based on what you guys have telling me, this sounds amazing. Like the opportunity to see the first time humans step foot on another planet, or not planet, but like another, I don't know, body of
Space object.
yeah,
Yeah.
another thing. Yeah, basically another thing in other than Earth. Like there's something about that that's historical. Like there's something significant about that as a species, like you said, Brandon. And yeah, like hearing that this has been like digitally restored in 4K, and like something about that is just like there's something about like archive footage that I think oftentimes can, for a lot of people, can get kind of boring, you know? Like not everybody wants to look at really grainy old footage that like is black and white or whatever, but something about like being able to take that and bring it into this modern day where everybody's like, oh wow, like I'd go watch this, and I absolutely would. And like Ethan, like one thing I want to talk to you about is like over the last like year, I've really gotten into like things like existential metaphysics, and space has definitely become kind of a frontier for that with me.
Yeah.
Like cosmic stuff, like that really gets me going. And like I'm fascinated by that stuff now. Like I will literally watch space documentaries just like on YouTube when I'm going to bed sometimes.
Return of my
Um,
dad.
and yeah, like it's just it sounds fascinating.
Yeah. Dude, Nova. There was a period in my life where Nova, the show, was my best friend, where it's all about space and stuff. And if you, Chris, if you like existentialism, you're gonna love my last pick. Anyways, Brandon,
Watch Cosmos.
Cosmos, Nova, all that stuff. Brandon, take us in your second pick.
Oh yeah. Okay. We'll go into the film that Ethan didn't pick from 2018 that I love. It's Free Solo. This is the hiking documentary, or
Hiking.
I don't know if any. Shut up.
More than just
Free
he's climbing.
Reclimbing.
Listen. I'm trying to sell the movie. Okay, get out of my head. Get out of my head.
He walked up that mountain.
Have you guys all seen this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys? Okay, cool. So I don't want to. Yeah, this is basically a story of a guy. It's at first like a nature doc, right? They're just exploring the wilderness, exploring this new form of extreme hiking, where extreme hiking, oh god, extreme climbing, where this guy chooses to climb mountains without a rope and with only his hands and like rosin. And this is for no other reason than it gives him an adrenaline rush, and he feels a sense of accomplishment by doing so. And you know, I saw this film in theaters, and it was pretty personal because I was alone. Nobody else was in the theater, and I do this thing for movies that I think I want to see on the big screen. I choose like one of the front 2 or 3 rows in the theater if I think it's going to be an experience that's worth it, you know.
Really?
So like if I want the screen to be massive, I'm going to be not in the front row, cuz like, you know, you have to crane your neck unless you have like a recliner, but like in those front 2 or 3 rows. And I did that for Free Solo, and that film just stunned me because you're seeing these natural landscapes with beautiful camera work, up close and personal in certain cases, and you get tense because this guy is climbing Half Dome, I think, at Yosemite with no rope, like for half the movie, but the other half of the movie is like a really personal dissection of a person who is like not really like sure on how he should live his life, because like hiking is basically not hiking, climbing is basically all he knows. Climbing does not equal hiking, folks. And sorry, but it's like you dissect his personal life and how this takes a toll on other people, but he's got to do it because a lot of documentaries like Apollo 11 are about human determination, whether you like it or not. And Free Solo is another good example of that. And it's inspirational. It's terrifying if you don't know the outcome. And I honestly think it's one of the most compelling documentaries I've seen in a long time, especially on the big screen. It's up there with Apollo 11. Those two. That was just a big year for docs. Holy crap.
Chris?
Yeah. I've seen Free Solo as well, and I I love the hiking in Free Solo.
There are
But,
a few
no,
sequences where they're hiking, walking
yeah,
around.
they do a little bit of hiking. Yeah, they do some
Yeah,
walking.
they hike to the wall.
But I really do like enjoy this. They hike to El Capitan, yeah. I remember like not long before I saw this movie, I think I went with my family to Yosemite and I got to see El Capitan close up. That wall is big. Like it's really fucking big. Like you don't really realize the sheer magnitude of this until you go there yourself. But also, this dog does a really good job of making you feel the weight of everything. Like the amount of like not only physical strain that this is going to put on Alex, but also like the emotional strain of it. And that's kind of like, of course, it's captivating and it's exhilarating to see him climb this thing. I was on the edge of my seat a lot of the time when he was climbing because I mean, this guy slips up once, he's dead. Like, no way he's gonna survive it.
Finito. Crushed.
Yeah. But one thing I do appreciate about this film is that it kind of goes into like kind of the personal ramifications that a guy like him, like the kind of things that affects, like his family, his friends, his girlfriend. And like there's a lot of like drama there. There's a lot to like kind of unpack about like if you do this kind of thing, like what does that mean for not only yourself but for the people you care about? Because this is a big thing to do. Like that is not something to take lightly. Because like yeah, like think about it simply, guys climbing a rock. But when you think about it, guys literally risking his life for no reason other than because he wants to, and it's what he wants to do with himself. And there's something like inspiring about that, but it's also like there's a little lesson about like about responsibility in its own way, kind of like how does what you do affect other people? And granted, I wouldn't necessarily I'll go on record to say I don't necessarily think Alex is a great guy.
No.
He doesn't seem to care very much about
No.
other people's feelings.
Yeah.
But I give him credit that man climbed that rock like nobody else could. Like I'll give him that. He's really good at hiking.
Isn't it like a
Ethan,
fascinating character
Oh,
study though?
in
It's
its
like
own weird way, it's like Joker. You know what I'm saying?
it's like Joker.
Prop-
You're gonna
Props
compare
to
it.
you, man, but you're kind of
What am
messed
I-
up.
Jeez.
I was gonna say, I think this movie's okay. I'm not head over heels for it. If I were to recommend, as Brandon calls, a hiking documentary, what's really a climbing documentary, I would suggest you check out the movie The Dawn Wall, which I think that film does a much better job at sort of exploring the climber and sort of what their life has been like. And they're a much more engaging character to follow than Alex Honnold. Yeah, because I think this film plays a dangerous game, much like what I was talking about with what's the movie called? Everybody Wants Some, where they do this weird balance of depicting this toxic character where Alex Honnold's sort of mindset that he conveys is like he calls it the warrior's mindset, where it's like absolute perfectionism and self-loathing until you achieve that perfectionism. And I wouldn't even say until. I would just say that's just this endless cycle that he's in of punishing himself until he's perfect and then finding something else to perfect, And this movie does a weird job at sort of painting that as a success story for him, but then also sort of telling it as a cautionary tale, And I think it could have taken a more interesting angle at depicting this character, but that being said, the climbing sequences are phenomenally shot. It does it gives you sort of like that fear of heights when you're like watching him climb up that, because you do feel the danger that he's in.
My palms were sweaty.
Knees weak, vomit on
Arms
your sweater.
are heavy.
Arms heavy. Mom spaghetti.
Mama spaghetti.
Sheesh.
But yeah, I think it's a good movie if you want to watch intense climbing sequences. But I don't know about like the rest of the film and like how they convey this character. Okay, let's get into this.
I think it just.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, you go.
I think it just like unveils this world that you weren't privy to. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like documentaries often take something unrecognized, much like journalism, and like gives voice to it. And like there's something to be said about like, I didn't know that there were people who were crazy enough to hike without ropes or stop with the fucking
Brandon, I hike without
climbing.
ropes all the time, believe it or not.
Who climb mountains without ropes, like in this adrenaline junkie world. There's a documentary about it called Maru, I think, by the same guys, or Valley Uprising too. Those two are very good pieces about that too. Like I explored that after, but I can definitely see like why people wouldn't be as won't vibe with it as much, but it is a gateway.
That's right. Okay, let's get into our final round here. Chris, you want to take us into our last pick?
All right, you guys knew this was coming. Blue Planet 2's back.
We're back, baby.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just quickly go over it. Everybody knows Blue Planet 2. First, amazing music by Hans Zimmer. Can't go without it. Breathtaking images. Probably the most well shot marine life documentary I've ever seen. I think recently I saw like a Disney ocean like nature doc. And I read Milo's review for it. And Milo's review was, I've really been spoiled by Blue Planet 2. And there's a reason for that. I feel like every time I watch a nature doc, I just keep thinking, this is great. Yeah. No Blue Planet 2. And yeah, the breathtaking images of the world beneath the surface is beautiful. And it's one of those things like, I'm fascinated by that because it's like, that literally may as well be another planet. Like, let's be real. Like, we're not meant to be down there. But yet there's a whole other world down there. And of course, I really appreciate this series' incredible amount of dedication to the education of environmental conservation and climate change. Obviously, that is becoming a way more prominent issue now than it ever has been. So I think if there were ever a time to educate yourself on climate change and environmentalism, now's the time. Obviously, it's a 6-hour doc. But I think like one thing that I've always kind of viewed Blue Planet 2 kind of passively. Like, of course, I'll sit up the TV and stare at it, but like sometimes you'll throw it on and just maybe like be doing something else or like just relaxing as David Attenborough's voice just kind of, eases you into the night. I don't know. There's something very relaxing about watching this. And I think this could pair really nicely with other docs because if you watch this last, it'll kind of be like the one where it's like you're kind of like relaxing and easing yourself away from like just like overwhelming thought, because a lot of docs I feel like can be quite heavy or urgent. There's like Free Solo is very, very exhilarating. Joshua is very intense. Don't like true crime stuff. If we throw in our true crime stuff, that's going to be big. But yeah, like Blue Planet, I feel like we'll be able to relax you. And yeah, we've talked about this miniseries before, so we don't need to spend too much time chatting about it. But like, Ethan, I know you're a big fan of this doc as well. What do you think?
Huge fan. I think you summed up perfectly, where it is just a nice thing. It's the best stuff to just have on the background while you're just like hanging out with friends or something like that. I think we'd always throw this on like at home when we were like preparing dinner, or something like that, and just like marvel at like just our world around us, and like, well, not specifically around us, the world beneath the ocean and just all the crazy stuff. I think we had a great conversation on the movies to watch high. I love for some reason when I was editing that, I just felt the need to edit underwater sound effects when we were talking about it. So whenever we mentioned Blue Planet 2, we just submerge ourselves underwater or something like that. Yeah, I love, there's just so many like small stories in this series that make up a larger, grander tale of just like the cycle of life. And just how beautiful yet brutal nature can be, you know, in this environment that is probably the most alien environment on this planet, you know, at least to us, of course. Yeah, it's phenomenal documentary. Brandon?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No, I've only seen
Oh.
Planet Earth.
Oh, man.
Right.
I
Yeah.
wasn't. Oh, but I love Planet Earth. I love David Attenborough speaking into my ear holes.
Let me
Kinda-
ask you this then. So you
What?
like Planet Earth, you like David
Yeah.
Attenborough,
Mhm.
you like Han. I know you have some critiques of Hans, but I know you like him in your
Yeah.
heart. You like his music.
Okay.
I know
It's
you
okay.
kind of like the ocean. Like you're
Yeah.
fascinated. You like. I think you're interested by it.
He likes
Yeah,
rhinos.
It's not one of my passions.
And it's like you
I
care
like
about the
biomes.
environment. So it's
The
like
reason why I like Planet Earth is because, you know, like it has all like the snow biome, the desert biome, the jungle biome. There's a lot of different ones. Whereas with the ocean, I don't really view it as like a bunch of different like. I'm interested by it for sure.
Your eyes are gonna be open, man. There's
Well,
whole
there's
biomes
different
underwater.
layers. Like there's like the upper surface and then the lower surface. You know what I mean? You know, where it's like the lower surface is where all the creepy crawlies that look kind of weird live, and then but they're am I wrong? And then there's like
Crawlies?
then there's the regular fish that live in the top. I've seen Finding Nemo. Come on, I know. No, just kidding. I do need to check it out. What was your question?
No, I was just like illustrating like there's a lot in this film that I think you would really enjoy. And like
Yeah, I agree.
Ethan, you briefly mentioned this, but I do want to highlight this. Like one thing I think Blue Planet 2 or any of the David Attenborough docs do really well is they kind of contain miniature stories within each of their episodes, basically.
Yeah.
Like you'll have stories about like there's a fish, they do this, they do that, maybe a 10-minute short film right there, basically. And then you move on. You go into another animal, you learn about them, how they do their thing. And then you kind of bask in, like you said, the majesty of the world beneath the ocean. So yeah, I definitely think, Brandon, I think you would really dig this. Very accessible too.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into my last pick. Now, you guys probably saw this one coming because I've been singing the praises of this documentary ever since I saw it last year for the first time. It is one of the few films where it's the closest I've ever had to a religious experience, I'd say. Just because of how yep, there you go. It is, of course, Godfrey Reggio's 1982 masterpiece documentary, Koyaanisqatsi. I can't even begin to tell you like how much what this film means to me, and I think what's the beauty of it is because this film is so it's so loose in like how it tells its narrative is that people can bring and take away what their own meanings from it. So if you're unaware with Koyaanisqatsi, basically it is there's no narration, there's no really subjects of the story. I think the subject is us. It's you, it's me, it's everyone. It's our collective, it's the collective planet. It is planet Earth. It is human culture. And it is a documentary that it's just shots of our world, of people, scored by the master Philip Glass. We've sung his praises before on the podcast. And to me, what I got out of this film was basically, I think one of its main theses is, of course, Koyaanisqatsi means life out of balance, and it showcases how we have as a human culture of sort of we are slowly, as we've advanced, we're slowly destroying this world and creating a life out of balance with the ecosystem and the planet as we know it, you know? But then I think it also shows sort of a beauty of what we as humans are, you know? And like what I think this movie answers the essential question of why we are here and why we exist. I think this movie basically plots out that we are children of the atom. The planet is our atoms and we are electrons. We are the thing that powers our reality, you know? Reality and existence. There's lots of shots where Reggio sort of juxtaposes our own just everyone moving around. He'll do shots of people moving down the highway super fast. He'll like speed it up, and then he'll quickly cut to a circuit board and circuitry, and it's like it's it's amazing. It's sublime. Just like the way he's able to zoom in on circuit boards and like sort of show like this is our planet. We are the circuitry that powers this thing. This is why you matter. This is why you exist, because you power yourself through your existence and by existing and by being, you know? But then he does say a warning that's like, but what we are doing is we are slowly killing ourselves, our atom, you know? And the music is masterful. It's a masterpiece score. I mean, there's a reason why Zack Snyder used it to sort of as the main theme to Dr. Manhattan and his origin story of the watchmaker's son, you know? Because I think that film sort of conveys a similar sublime feeling to the character of Dr. Manhattan, you know? But in this case it's about us, that we as a collective, we are just as ethereal and powerful as Dr. Manhattan, because we are this abstract concoction of cells and these weird jointed creatures that sort of like build anthills. There's a sequence where he showcases these abandoned apartments, and to me I had the feeling of like these are just like termite mounds, anthills, where like each room there's a person's life in each like window in each room, but then it's all destroyed because they're all abandoned, you know? And it's crazy. I watched this film for the first time on the big screen in my cabin. We have a projector and we projected it up against a wall. Granted, I've never seen this movie sober. But I think it'll just hold up just as well. I think the drugs helped me open my mind a bit more, you know? Brandon, you've seen Koyaanisqatsi. You watched it on a laptop on your bed, and that gives me a hernia just thinking about
Shut
that.
up.
But what do you think of this movie?
This movie gave me a migraine. I was watching and I was sitting it, and I was trying, and it was on one of those movie sites. I think it was Pluto TV that has ads. 'Cause that's the
Oh,
only place it was. The only place it was showing, Ethan.
oh no!
And I really wanted to see it, and the Philip Glass score mixed with the ads, mixed with like the way I saw it, it didn't
Yeah.
really, and I didn't hate the movie. I'd still give it like a 3 star. I think movies like this are fascinating. If they have the right music or the right shots, something like Samsara is a very good comp to this,
Yeah.
where they're just like, they let the camera go, and they're like, we're gonna edit this in a way to make a story, even if there's no dialogue, there's no characters, there's no anything. Like you said, there's a lot of juxtaposition between the natural world and the humans' artificial world that has been created out of the earth and what we've used to make other things with the different cells, like you said, and materials.
Yeah.
And I think that is like the best part of the film. I think, much like other documentaries for me, this kind of loses steam because of how it is structured, very repetitive, I think. Not saying it isn't eye-opening in a lot of other regards, but for me, like, maybe it was the migraine talking, but it really got to me that it was just like the same message over and over again, and that I wasn't getting beaten over the head with it necessarily, but it was just like, all right, I get the point. Is there something else you want to say here, you know? Not saying it's bad. I want to check it out again. I know you have the DVD of the trilogy, I think the whole Kotsky trilogy, right, Ethan?
Yes. So I know Chris wants to watch this movie, and Brandon, I think you got to give it a different shot without the ads and on a bigger screen. So one of these days, Chris, you're coming over,
give it another shot.
and boom, that's how we're gonna do it.
Yeah. I do want to say, like, I haven't seen this film. I've only heard amazing things from it, from Ethan especially. And Ethan, like you said earlier, like, as someone who now me has kind of opened myself to kind of frankly, yeah, existential metaphysics has kind of become my religion. It's the closest thing I have to some kind of a worldview. And I totally.
Oh. It's like the Halo theme.
Oh. Okay. Yes, I do definitely like see why this would be a really fascinating doc. And I think like one thing that I really like about it and but is also kind of the reason I've been kind of scared to watch it so far is like it's a very experimental use of the documentary medium. The
Yes,
fact
it
that
is.
it's very much like it's kind of like here's some images, here's some music, take what you will, basically. And I guess that's kind of an interesting exploration of how humans interpret. Like we see things and then we kind of create. It's basically a giant exercise of the Kuleshov effect. But yeah, I definitely like see what you said, Ethan. And you were talking about how like there's these abandoned shots of these abandoned buildings, and like you kind of like see it as like my God, these are like burrows, and like we're like we're just like any other animals. We're just a little bit more intelligent about how we do it.
Yeah.
And um I for some reason when you said that, Ethan, I do want to just quickly throw this in because it's something that's been rattling my brain for a while and I want to like tell you guys about this.
Yeah.
So there's this digital artist slash photographer named Aristotle Rufani. He does the most amazing work. What he does is he'll go to a city, a random giant city, and go up to the highest point he can, like maybe on a hill or something, and take a ton of photos over like 6 hours or like maybe even a whole day's worth of photos. And what he does is he takes them all and stitches every single one together. It's one of the most high res things in the world because what you
Oh.
see is every window you can zoom into and gauge what's going on in there. You can see people in the
It's
window.
kind of creepy if you think about it.
Yeah. So like
But I like
like
it.
like you can keep going, you can just keep going in and in. Like for example here, look at that. You can't this might not be the best example, but you can just keep going back and back and back and back. And then you can just see like what's all going on in this world. And like something about that is just fascinating. So I think that's a great example of why that is so interesting. Highly recommend anyone to go check out this guy's work. He's amazing. But yeah, Ethan, I totally buy Corey on Scotzi. I think this seems like a really great, like not only a really great like experimental and fascinating use of the documentary medium, but also just like how often do you see metaphysics being conveyed in this way? Like
Rare.
rare, yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
All right. Yes, we got to watch this together. All right, Brandon, let's wrap this up with your last pick.
All right. Have you guys heard of a film called Dear Zachary?
Isn't that a song? Dear Zachary. I don't know.
I don't know, but
Yeah,
that's not what it is. So this movie will rip your heart out. So, I saw this. This is a kind of a true crime movie, kind of not. It's one of the most unique documentaries I've ever seen in my life because of the way it portrays somebody's life event. Here's the director, who is also the documentarian, actually taking their own personal life and integrating it into a movie about somebody that they knew. So essentially, it's about this guy who loses his friend. All right. And this documentarian's like, I'm gonna make a movie for his child who he never got to see because his girlfriend had a child, and because of that, the documentarian's like, he'll never get to know his dad and what he was like, but his dad was like an amateur actor. He was a goofball. He was fun. And through the first like third of the movie, it's just a normal documentary about this guy trying to make a documentary for his fallen friend and for the people in his life by interviewing everyone in his life about him and about this guy. And then it takes a turn. So in the second third of this movie, you find out, and I'm going to try not to get into spoilers because the real magic is in the third act of the movie when it really catches you off guard.
Right.
But you start to expect something more sinister happening behind the scenes. And the way it's depicted through the emotions of the camera and of the form that the editor and documentarian takes is some of the most unique and like jarring things you'll ever see from a documentary like this. Because rarely can you capture somebody's emotive state outside of them like crying on screen in an interview? It's something that they do with the form, like the way that it's edited together, or they put filters on it, and like it really kind of gauges how somebody's feeling internally. And it's like tearing you apart, whether that be like a mental illness or a struggle with somebody's like personal life and romantic relationships. But it gets into this like how something sinister may have happened to this guy, and we know because the documentarian has investigated this himself. It's imagine Don't Fuck with Cats, but instead of like the documentary like being like, Chris, I've only seen the trailer, but you can confirm this for me. The people who are in the documentary who are like searching all this information out, they were sought out by a documentarian, correct? They didn't actually like make this documentary themselves.
Oh yeah. Like they did the investigation, and then the documentarian came in and was like, "Hey, I want to make a thing about you." You know what I mean?
Yeah. In my film, the documentarian finds stuff out.
Is the investigator.
Is the investigator. So he becomes an active part. Like at first it's like he has an active voice, but he's being passive with it because he's explaining like, this is my history with him. I was a part of his life, and this is for him and for his child, Zachary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I think they named him Zachary, but and it's fantastic because it's an evolving documentary as it goes on. It's very hard to describe for that reason. Like the reason why I had such a hard time kind of gathering myself is because you can describe this documentary in so many ways, but I've never been so emotionally affected by a documentary in my life, because rarely am I on the edge of my seat watching a documentary that doesn't have to do with like climbing a mountain or like
hiking
or hiking. Sorry. But like it's like the story and the relationships carry this one, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who's listening to the podcast, but like I gotta watch this with you guys. Like it is absolutely fantastic and kind of one of the best things I've ever seen.
That sounds amazing. Like I think my favorite thing of any like of just narrative nonfiction, I've mostly experienced this through narrative nonfiction writing and books, is sort of the author or the filmmaker revealing information to the viewer upon the same time that they are. We're sort of exploring the same time. That's what I'm sort of getting at from what you're telling me, and I love that. Minding the Gap does that similarly. And yeah, I'm sold. I'd love to check that out. That sounds amazing. And then if it also has like a true crime angle, that just makes it all the more like disturbing and emotional. So hell yeah, I'm in. Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I don't know. True crime is something that I'm still very much like getting myself like into, because like honestly it scared the shit out of me for a long time. But yeah, like basically what you said, like it's really interesting, like the angle that you approach this with, in the sense of like a lot of it's like to have the documentarian be the investigator. There's something personal about that. There's something more like I don't know, like what's the word? Like authorial. Like it's more like the author is in the story. There's something about that. Yeah, and I definitely think like that can be really interesting. Could you imagine like think about like the biggest like I don't know, a big crime that happened, and imagine like seeing the person that uncovered it. It's like watching Spotlight, but if it were a documentary, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it's like this, Chris. It's like I love documentaries that take a twist midway through, even a movie.
Yeah.
Like think of Parasite. That movie starts out as like kind of like a lighthearted comedy about class, and then it kind of dives into the dark drama that is the dark side of capitalism, or just capitalism. And whereas like with Dear Zachary, you have this, it's kind of like Three Identical Strangers in that sense, but it's more tapped into the emotions, and it has more to do in its runtime. So I don't know if that sells it any better or whatever, but
I think that certainly sells it better. Okay. So this is an interesting thing for the first time since starting the show. Guys, we have a movie to catch, so we gotta hurry this up. We haven't been able to use this as an excuse early in the show because the movie theater's been closed, but we got a movie to catch. So let's quickly go through our films and figure out this final stack. So Chris, start us up with your films.
Yep. Our first film, my first film, is Joshua Teenager vs. Superpower. Next up is Don't Fuck with Cats, and finally is Blue Planet 2.
All right, I got Minding the Gap, Apollo 11, and Koyaanisqatsi.
All right, I have 2001 World Series film Diamondbacks versus Yankees. I have Free Solo, and then I got sorry, I was thinking about what Will Smith song from Spies in Disguise. And then my last one is Dear Zachary.
Okay, so
I have a pitch.
go for it.
ahead.
Okay, so I think I would love to see either Koyaanisqatsi or Blue Planet 2 make it in. I think both of those are great. And to pair with that, I think it'd be nice to throw in either a Dear Zachary maybe, because I think true crime is really something that's picking up and it sounds fascinating. So, and the one thing I'm wondering about that is like, if we took those three films, do you think Koyaanisqatsi and Blue Planet 2 are a little bit too similar in the sense of like the kind of grandeur of it, or is it kind of, I don't know, what do you think?
No, because it's about two completely different subject matters. Blue Planet 2 is about the ocean. It's about a completely different world, where Koyaanisqatsi is about ourselves and our collective culture,
interesting.
you know? So, yeah,
I guess
I
they
was
would
gonna,
make a good pairing because they're opposites.
yeah, I would say so. So I think, and I want Dear Zachary because I think we need those kinds of stories in this stack to sort of show you the power of documentary, you know? I think
Oh,
we
interesting.
should,
Yeah, that's true.
I think we should start with like a Blue Planet 2, where I think Blue Planet 2 is sort of like what people think of when they think of documentaries, you know, nature documentaries. It is pretty stereotypical of how someone
David
would shoot
Attenborough.
nature documentary. But it's not necessarily stereotypical. It's the Blue Planet series and like Planet Earth, it set the standard, you know? So I think we kick off our stack with that, and then we go completely into something personal like Dear Zachary and show you how these how documentary can tell such small scale stories, but also like reveal the darkness of humanity, but also like some hope, you know? And then I think we take it back out with Koyaanisqatsi and like show how documentary can really go outside of the box and sort of show like what it really means to be documentary, because it's a wide spectrum of what it means to be a documentary, you know? I think we have 3 different kinds of documentaries here, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I think that's definitely true. I really like those three being paired together. One thing I am wondering though, I don't know, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I'm wondering, do you think Blue Planet 2 being started because considering it's 6 hours long? Do you want to like end with that, or do you think you can just make
Pick
it through?
your
I don't know.
favorite episode.
You could pick your favorite
Oh, that's
episode.
maybe a good-
The life cycle of the whale. I think you should watch
Oh,
that
the whale.
one,
Oh, yeah.
of that whale. I think that is just absolutely like that's some of the best television I've ever watched was that episode. That or
If you're a true stacky,
yeah.
then you can watch all of the Blue Planet. And
That's
then if
right.
You're not.
You make the commitment, watch all of Blue Planet 2. But if not, I'd recommend that episode. You guys down?
Down.
Brandon?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, so let's run down Stack's official most quintessential documentary film stack. Chris, start us off.
Yep. Our first documentary is a classic form of documentary. It is an environmental film, a David Attenborough epic about nature and the world beneath the ocean. Amazing, fascinating, beautiful, gorgeous. Everything you could ever want in a nature doc. Please go check it out. And if you can only have the time to watch one episode, watch the one with the blue with the life cycle of the whale. It'll do you some good.
Yes.
Check it out.
Mine is Dear Zachary, a terrific documentary about a documentarian getting involved in his own documentary. It is very personal, it is very emotional, but it also is so intriguing and fascinating. I can't get enough of this. You won't either.
And kicking it off, or not kicking it off, finishing it off, sorry about that, is Godfrey Reggio's phenomenal film, Koyaanisqatsi, the film about life and the world around us and our life out of balance and what it means to exist, what it means to be everything. Bah, it's a mind fuck. Please check it out. And that'll do it for our final stack here about documentaries. Thank you all for listening. Yeah. Okay.
I
Bye.
need to see Quiet Place 2. Get out of here.
Yeah, we gotta
Bye,
go.
guys.
Gotta go.